Hello everyone. Are you tired of your foundation? You can feel it pilling when you put it on after a while. It looks cakey, it looks patchy, it just doesn't look good. Today, we are diving into the mistakes that women over 40, 50, 60, and beyond, maybe even in your 30s, depending on your skin type, make about foundation. Mistake number one, not prepping the skin correctly. Think of your skin as your canvas. If you have any texture or dryness, the foundation is always going to settle into that. So we really need to prep the skin. Become a prepping queen. First, we want to start talking about your nighttime routine. Now, just in recent years, I started dermaplaning, shaving my face, shaving the peach fuzz. So you want to do this even if you think that you don't have a lot of peach fuzz, because you'll be amazed at how much really is on your face and it helps. Now, I like to do this about every 2 weeks. It just kind of varies, kind of watch and see if I catch a little peach fuzz in the sunlight. But there's numerous ways that you can do it. There you can buy, an inexpensive little razor and just, manually use some kind of oil or something, or you can do the electronic kind, like Spa Science has one. Michael Todd Beauty has a supersonic one. I have tried 3 different ones. I'll leave that video link down below. Any videos that correspond with what I'm talking about, I'll have linked down below, or will come up at the end so you can watch it. I really go into depth about the differences, price points, and all that in there. So whatever your method, you want to try that. Now, people have said, I've seen online, that it makes the hair grow back faster, darker, thicker. I have not had that experience, and tons of people have said online that no, that is not what happens. Then you want to use a heavy night moisturizer. So during the day, it's going to be more of a lighter cream. Just think you want like heavier. It doesn't always have to feel heavier, but just more of either it says nighttime cream on it, or it's just a thicker, almost heavier, more hydrating cream. Now, this is something that I'm looking into, but I haven't gotten yet, but I just want to mention it because I have read about it, and I think that this would help our canvas continue to look good. A contour pillow, like your face pillow, that's supposed to help like not form the lines. So even though I haven't tried that, I have tried silk pillowcases, and they make a difference. When I've slept on a silk pillowcase versus just a cotton pillowcase, I can always tell, because in the morning, there'll be a little bit of a deeper set lines in my face. Of course, we always need, well, I shouldn't say we, because I always need to drink more water. So drinking water definitely helps keep the skin hydrated, keeps you looking more plump. You've gotten your beauty sleep and you're waking up for the day. And do a cleanse. It doesn't have to be a deep cleanse, but if you use that heavy moisturizer, or you use any kind of retinols or anything like that during the day, just to get a fresh canvas, do a cleanse. If you have any dry patches and you want to do an exfoliation, there's different exfoliating pads that you can get from different brands. Now would be the time to do that step. Then add any serums, and then followed by moisturizer. Now, I really like to make sure that each of the products is soaked into the skin and give ample time in between each step for them to dry. So I will cleanse my face, and then I'll brush my teeth, kind of let my skin dry and everything, make sure it's dry. Then I'll do like the serums or the targeted treatments, for the 11s or something like that. And I'll either then go eat something for breakfast, or if I'm going to sit down and start getting ready for the day, then I'll start on my eye makeup. Then I go to the moisturizer. So I'm letting really each thing soaked in. And when I put the moisturizer on, I'm not going to go right to foundation. I'm going to finish my eyes, maybe do my mascara, fix my hair, figure out what I'm going to wear, do something else to let it soak in. As we age, we really don't want to. I've never been a full coverage foundation girl, but if you are, then you really have to be even more cautious, because as we age, the thicker formula is just going to really settle into any fine lines that we have and any texture. So you want something that's lighter, kind of more light, reflective to it, lighter formula. So just lighter, not color-wise, but just in the formulation. But I think even for oily skin, you may just want a little bit more of a matte, but you still, I don't think, would want heavy. If you need more full coverage, look more for a foundation that is full coverage, but is still lightweight in that consistency. Something even that you can build up. If you are a person who has trouble finding color, your perfect color, and you do want that lightweight luminosity formula, it is pricey, but there is a device, Bold Hue, which you can customize your foundation to your perfect color. It is a very lightweight, gives more of a glow formula. But I just wanted to mention that if you're interested in that, I did do a video on that. It's a really cool product, and I feel like I was like a mad scientist when doing it, but I realized that is not for everyone. Because do you currently have a foundation that you love? If so, what is it? And have you been using primers, or is that something new to you? You know, when I was learning makeup, we didn't have primers. Like, there are so many more things nowadays that we didn't have. I feel like we just applied the foundation right to our face and used our fingers to blend. There wasn't a sponge, a brush, and all that. But so now we've picked out our formulas, because this video is going to be more about technique rather than going into each of the formulas, but hopefully that has helped so far about understanding the water silicone. I think I've got that. Okay. Well, you may have tried a primer and thought, ugh, I don't like it. So a mistake can be misusing a primer. And you may think, well, you just put it on. But you need to think about silicone versus water-based. So I just got this. I ordered the L'Oreal Infallible Freshwear Foundation because I've heard good things about this. And the color I got, hopefully I picked right, is 420. Okay, so this is a silicone-based foundation. And if you're unsure, if water is the first ingredient, it's going to be water-based. But if you're unsure, usually you can Google it or look on the site and the brand site, and you can see. Okay, so this is a silicone-based foundation. The Milk Hydro Grip Primer, this is water-based. So if I use this, I'll put this on half of my face and show you. It's not going to look as good. This is Stila one-step primer, and it's a silicone-based. So I'm going to put on one on each side so that you can see. Stila silicone-based. The Milk Hydro Grip, again, this is a water-based. Even though this feels like it should be, in my opinion, a silicone-based, but when you look on their website, it says that it is water-based. It's a non-silicone primer, which it can just kind of vary with what you are looking for. Some people are sensitive to any of the silicones. And another mistake is using the improper tools for what the formula is. But I don't want to do too many things at once. So in this step, I'll show you the difference between these primers, and then same video next day for me, but same video for you. I'll show you with different tools. And you just kind of want to let them kind of sit, soak in for maybe like 60 seconds or so. And I'm going to shake this. So this is a lightweight, it looks like foundation. Is a maybe a little bit of a scent. So I'm just gonna, yeah, because you can apply, oh, I got a little much. You can apply with a brush. There's different kinds of brush, sponge, your fingers, and also on how you apply it, the product on your face versus your brush versus your hand. So we're gonna get to all of that. So don't go away. Oh, I got way too much. I feel like when I look in the camera, I look like ghostly. Don't want to go all the way up here. We're not using our foundation as a concealer. And this was applying it with the Sephora 64 brush, a pro foundation brush. When applying it, then I'm not necessarily seeing a huge difference, but like I said, on how it will wear. I have had the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Foundation on for about 6 hours. I feel like it's still holding up. First impression, I like it. Now, as we're talked about the primers, I feel like when I look at it, it's not a huge difference, you know, between the water-based and the silicone-based primer, where there is, but I feel like it does kind of just look this side of my face where it had the silicone primer with the silicone foundation. I feel like just kind of looked overall just kind of more put together. But where I'm noticing the big difference, or more like smooth, I should say, water-based primer, silicone foundation. And when I go like this, it's pilling. It's just rubbing off and kind of rolling off. Now, when I do this side, it doesn't. So if you have that trouble with pilling, make sure, like, that is a huge difference, I feel like. And you don't want to like be rubbing like this because it can affect your skin, like the barrier layer and all that, from what I've read. But so that's where I've noticed the biggest difference. Today, to demonstrate the next foundation mistake, I'm going to be using, this is the CoverGirl Clean Liquid Foundation. The color that I have is medium light. This is going to be how we apply the product. Put on maybe a stripe. By the way, I've been guilty of all these mistakes. But you put on a bunch, or you blend it in, and since you've put these stripes and dots on, you have a tendency, it's very easy to get too much product. And by the time you get to your other side, it's could settle in, depending on the formulation, could be already settled in and then hard to blend out. You, instead of putting it directly on your skin like that, a good way to do is to either, if you have a plastic kind of palette, or use the back of your hand. And see, this has, it will run. So that's kind of what I was talking about as far as like a lightweight formula, because I can't even really hold this up, otherwise it's going to run down my arm. You want to dip into here, and instead of going directly on the face, we're just going to kind of buff it out onto the hand, or you could buff it onto a paper towel or something. You just kind of want to get the excess off. You can always come back and get more. It's better to build it up. And we're going to start always with the center of the face and work our way out. So your cheeks, your forehead, the center is going to be where the most product is going to be applied. And then just feather that out. It might be hard to tell on camera, but this side where I buffed it onto my hand first, I feel like just has a little bit more of a glow, more skin-like finish, where this side, it still has, since I've prepped my skin, I feel like there's still a little bit of the skin-like finish. It just looks a little bit heavier and a little bit thicker in on this side. So for this section of this mistake is applying your foundation directly to your skin in big globs or stripes and then going in and blending it. And the way to combat that is to apply it to your hand first as a palette, or if you have a palette, and work in your area and then add. Just like in home projects or craft projects, if you have the right tools, it can make all the difference. The same thing applies to our makeup. You can use your fingers to apply foundation. There's kind of more round brushes like this. This is from Sephora collection. There's flat foundation brushes, more of a kabuki dense brush. You have kind of angled dense brushes. I just used this today, sorry. But so you have a variety of brushes that you can choose from and sponges. So what is the difference and what should you use? Now let's start with the flat foundation brushes. I have had a little bit of success with them, but I would say overall, some of my makeup artist friends could disagree with me, but I would say that overall, I would rather use this for concealer. It might be a little bit big, but I feel like it's better suited for that, or even like as an eye, if I'm applying the eye primer or something. So I don't tend to use the flat foundation brushes because I have found that for the most part, it's easier to streak your foundation with these. So the Sephora one, it's a bit more of a domed, there's some give to it. But when I use this, instead of just going like this with it, I always do more of that pressing and pouncing motion, even with a brush. If I use a thicker one, this is from It Cosmetics. Again, I'm doing, instead of just going like this or swirling it around, I'm doing the same motion, the pounce, press and pounce. And then that is the same thing with a beauty sponge. You're gonna press and pounce. Some of it is going to come down to your tool, just what your preference is. Playing around with it, figuring out what works best for you. But a general rule of thumb to pick which tool you should use depends on the consistency of the foundation that you're using. If you have a more like kind of runny, liquidy formulation, more like a skin tint or something like that, and you want a little bit more coverage, you're probably going to want to pick up that brush. If you're really wanting that like just kind of glow from within, just a little bit of coverage, even with those, you can use a damp sponge. But especially if you have a heavier, more full coverage foundation, then a damp sponge is going to be your best bet. This is the Bobbi Brown Skin Serum Foundation. So this is a very light foundation. When you use a sponge, no matter what formula it is, you want to damp it. A dry sponge will take up too much product and kind of get patchy. So you want to run your sponge all underwater, make sure it is completely wet. It should start to double in size. Then you want to squeeze it out, wrap it in a towel, make sure you're getting all the excess liquid out. So if I have that serum and I go in, now if I take that same foundation, and this is also a complexion brush, it's a little more dense, and I go in with that, and I'm gonna just, again, pounce that, press and pounce. You know what? I thought that this was gonna show more, but I don't know if it is showing that I'm getting more coverage with the brush. So I guess it just kind of depends on what formula you're using. Because with that one, It's kind of looking a little bit the same. The CoverGirl one, that's a little bit of a heavy, well, not a little bit, it's heavier formulation than the foundation serum. Because if I was going to brush it on like this, number one, it doesn't really, it just moves the product around. And I'm getting some coverage, but I'm not getting a lot of coverage because, yeah, it's just moving it around my skin. So a good way just to kind of keep in mind is if you want more coverage of the formulation that you're using, a brush is going to give you more, it's going to give you more coverage on. Where if you have a foundation that maybe it looks a little too thick on, giving you too much of that mask-like, or sometimes even if the color is a little too dark and then you use the sponge, that can help it. So if you have, okay, am I making sense? I think I am. If the foundation is light, like a skin tint or something, and you want more coverage, general rule of thumb, use a brush. If you have a thicker foundation or you're just really looking for a skin-like finish, use a sponge. And to quickly touch on concealer, again, play around. I feel like these are just kind of general, you know, there is rules, I guess you could say, in makeup, but I feel like it's kind of playing around and seeing what works best for you. But generally speaking, you want to do your foundation and then your concealer first. I've done it both ways, so it just kind of depends. But the idea is generally you don't want to be using your foundation as your concealer. Usually a concealer is a little bit of a thicker consistency and it's just a different formulation. If you get a concealer that's like 1 or 2 shades lighter, that is going to help reflect the light. Now, as far as setting, you do want to look for a loose setting powder. And there is a difference between a finishing powder and a setting powder. How finely milled they are, and you don't want a compact powder. You're looking for loose. I don't see it as often now as I did back in the day, but there used to be a lot of talk on YouTube about baking. And that is where you would just set the powder on and let it bake. And I feel like maybe if you have oily skin, you can get away with this, but for us dry ladies, and I feel like as you mature, sorry, I just got to put on some lipstick. You don't want a compact powder for this, just something really finely milled. The one that I'm trying today, I'm excited because this is the first time I'm trying a pink setting powder. This is from L'Oreal Infallible Blurfection, and it's blurring and brightening. Well, you really, instead of putting this all over, a setting powder is really just for targeted areas. It's usually forehead, nose, chin, maybe a little bit under the eye, but you want to be cautious about that. Kind of go over where the concealer is to help prevent creasing. For tools for that, a powder puff or, you know, that flat brush that we didn't use for the foundation, maybe something like that. The key is, so I've just put a little bit on the lid here, and I'll pick that up with the brush. I'm going to tap off so that I don't have a ton, and I want to press this in. I just picked up a little bit more, so if you usually get shiny here, then you can just press it in. Get shiny here. And I'm just going to put a little bit more in there, and let's try the puff. I got this one off Amazon. I've heard that e.l.f. has a good one, but the idea is the same. You're going to press it in. So basically, I think what you can see as the theme as we mature, you want to be pressing things into your skin, and you want to be adding hydration instead of drying it out. Let's see what this does to my forehead. I don't usually really need it there, but I'm just kind of curious about this product. I'll have to play around with this more, but it seems like this is definitely lightweight. And like I said, I'll play around with this one specifically, but for loose setting powders, what I personally like is a little puff like this. I think that it's the best as far as like really just setting it and not looking drying. So that's my preference. All right. So now let's go talk about setting sprays. Now, even if you don't like it, I have a tip for you. We are using a mattified foundation. We put the powder on and then it can look a little bit flat. That's where not only for holding your makeup and keeping it staying put, but depending on what setting spray you're using, can also add some hydration, some glow back in if you've gotten a little bit flat finish. Instead of thinking of like, I need to set it with some heavy powder, you know, set it lightly with powder. And then you can also, if you need additional setting, then use the spray. Like Urban Decay, they have an all-nighter that has an extra glow, so that will add it back in. Now, the things that I think can go wrong with setting spray is using way too much. It is fun to, when you're like filming a video or doing it, it's fun to be like, you know, like all the like larger YouTuber beauty YouTubes, they just, you know, but that's not really how you should apply it. If you read pretty much on any setting spray that I have read or used, you want to do an X or a T, not a huge amount. Shake, and then we're just going to do the T. Now, if you feel like you need a little bit more, you could do the X, but again, not much, and then you want to let it dry. Yes, I like to use my fan because it makes me feel fancy to make sure that it is dry. Now, if you're using a setting spray and you've noticed that your makeup is running or just looking too wet, you're probably either using too much spray or you're getting too close. So you want to use it at a distance. Now, let's say you want to use a setting spray, but you just don't like spraying things in your face like that. My mom doesn't. A solution to that, a beauty sponge. So what you can do is you can wet that, and not as damp as you use it for, you know, doing the foundation, but get it a little damp, and then you can just kind of press this in to where you feel like you need that extra either hydration back in, or if you notice that a lot of times your foundation doesn't stick on your nose and kind of wears off there, then just lightly tap it in. But that is a way to also use a setting spray. Now, a bonus thing that is going to help how your makeup applies and helps with those tools is to clean those tools. Just keep in mind, you don't want to have a dirty brush or dirty sponge that you're reapplying the product on your face. It's not good. So I try to weekly clean. That's why sometimes I like to get a lot of brushes, because the more brushes you have, the less you gotta clean. But that's not really probably how we should be doing it. But when you do clean your makeup brush, there's numerous cleansers. You can use bars of soap. I've used the e.l.f. solid cleanser. There's a artist one that's made for like painting, oil painting, but I've gotten that off of Amazon. The Sigma solid, there is for in between. It's not really deep cleaning, but this is Cinema Secrets that I really like because this gets it so clean. Now, bonus, if you're using this, you dip your brush in. You don't want to dip the brush all the way to the top. Just dip it in and you'll see the product move up. And if you're using, soap and water to clean the brush. Just a tip, you don't want to let the water get into this metal part because it'll loosen the glue in there. So you want to just, some water could get in there, but generally, like when I'm rinsing it, I'm not going to just let it soak under there and soak all the way up to, here. And then when you're letting it dry, either let it dry flat or this way. Because if you let it dry this way, then some of that water, hopefully it'll be damp, but some of that water could get into the brush right here and not last as long. When you're cleaning your sponges, throw them into the sink, use some whatever soap that you choose, and make sure you're using them, let them dry, and you will be good to go. So what do you think? I feel like this was a lot, but hopefully this helped any misconceptions that you have about had about foundation and applying it on mature skin. Hopefully this helped address any of the issues that you were facing. Let me know if there's any other things that I missed, any other suggestions that you have as far as makeup, either things that you're curious about or mistakes, misconceptions, that kind of thing. I do have coming up techniques that help with eyeshadow hooded eyes. So that's coming down in the pipeline. But hopefully that this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I will have all the products that I talked about listed down below. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you want to watch more beauty, makeup, skincare tips, you can click on any of the videos that are popping up on the screen here. And I hope that you have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.